All right, Beard. So, I really just stayed home all day today and just worked on football stuff. I rewatched a lot of all 22, a lot of condensed games. Shout out to NFL Plus. The premium package is definitely worth it. Just $15 a month, and you get to watch all the all 22, any game you want to, all the condensed, full games, all that stuff. NFL Network, live games, loved it. So I stayed home and really just rewatched the games and really retook a look at this Eagles at Packers matchup. The Eagles did end up winning 34-29. If I'm long winded, feel free to cut me off because, and this is for the entire show, bro, I have a lot to talk about today. Like, just a bunch of little things that we talked about in the preview show that I kind of saw pan out or didn't see pan out in these games. But the Eagles were down at the half 19-17. They outscored the Packers in the second half 17-10 to win by 5 points, 34-29. That's two in a row versus Green Bay for the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Eagles got off to a very interesting start in this game. It looked a little bit rusty. You saw the Friday overreactions on Twitter. Everybody kind of losing their mind, especially on Giants Twitter from what I saw. Cam Jurgens had that interesting snap where Jalen Hurts wasn't really looking and checking for the ball. They had an early fumble. Kellen Moore kind of trying to find his way with this offense and whatnot. Interception on the first drive on the third play for the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts fumbled on the second drive. So you really start this off in a really tough position. The Eagles defense, though, they stood up early in this game, and to me, that was the difference in this game. They held the Packers to just 6 points on those first two turnovers, and right at that moment in time, when they scored the first field goal and the Eagles turned over the ball for the second time, I tweeted this out. I said, to be down 6-0 after the worst start to a football game that I've seen in a long time, the Eagles are extremely fortunate. If the Packers don't win tonight, we'll come back to the first quarter. If the Packers do win, it means they were a much better team than the Eagles tonight. That was not the case in this one. After the Eagles got the two turnovers, they scored a touchdown on 3 straight drives after that. And the Packers had plenty of opportunities in this game late. They were down 31-26. Jordan Love led them on a 10-play, 79-yard drive, but it ended in a field goal. And to me, that was another big difference maker in this game. The score was 31-29 at that point in favor of the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Eagles added another field goal. And with one chance left, with 27 seconds left in the game, Jordan Love ends up getting his knee a little bit twisted in this one. And, it looked a lot worse on the field, the way that Jordan Love was down on the ground.
That's what was scary, because it was, when they do the rolls and the punches and
yes.
It's like, oh, no, I immediately was like, oh, no, not Love, because he's a guy we all kind of, as the football fans, we want to see what he's going to do this year.
Yeah, man. I mean, football on Sundays, YouTube on Mondays. I ain't trying to be playing both, on YouTube and whatnot. I got to be out here getting to the bag and whatnot. But it is good that there's two NFC East games that had a big injury shock like this one, and this was one of them. You saw Malik Willis come in for just a play or two there, and he ended up taking a sack. You know what I thought was really interesting about the Eagles' formula at the end of this game when Malik Willis came in to try to get the Hail Mary off? Instead of playing prevent defense, they just sent the kitchen sink at him on both plays, and he couldn't get the ball off. The Eagles end up winning this one 34-29, and Jalen Hurts had some interesting quotes after the game. I believe he was with Sal Palantino, and he said, it's going to be a lot to learn from this tape, but fuck it. It's about how you finish. And I totally agree. He made mistakes in this game. I thought both quarterbacks made mistakes in this game. The Eagles did lose the turnover battle 3-1. They had 2 interceptions, 1 fumble, all of that being on Jalen Hurts. But I think the biggest story of the Friday night game was Saquon Barkley, who looked like he was the best player on the field. Slipped on his first run. You saw Giants Twitter like, yay, getting all hype. I was just thinking, slow down here, pump the brakes. Saquon ended the day 24 carries for 109 yards, 3 total touchdowns. He had 4.5 yards per carry. Beautiful wheel route where he made a very athletic play to make that catch on the left side of the end zone right by the pylon. Could have had 4 touchdowns, but Nick Sirianni is just a damn weirdo. I don't know why he wants to just live and die on that tush push. Saquon got you down there to the goal line with like an 8-yard run. Just allow him to punch it in. I know you want to get your statistics for your quarterback and whatnot, but you said that this was going to be an NFC East championship preview. Do you think it lived up to the hype?
Absolutely. I totally think it did. And I think both of these teams did good and did bad at adjusting throughout this game. And that was something that we kind of talked about too, about the difference between there's adjustments from week to week, adjustments from quarter to quarter and half to half, but it's the series to series adjustments that are important. And I thought both of these teams did really good at that offensively and suffered at it defensively at different times throughout this game. Obviously, Saquon Barkley, I think most people knew as soon as he signed with the Eagles, it was just like, damn. The rich get richer. Like he's going to be behind that offensive line. He's not the main focus point of the offense. It's a perfect situation for Saquon Barkley, and he completely took advantage of it. And we saw the versatility that we saw in Saquon Barkley early in his career.
Yeah.
Especially the athleticism you mentioned on that catch. Then the throw on that was beautiful too. You know, he put it where only Saquon could get it, which is super important. I think the undervalued, underrated guy of this game for the offensive side of the ball for Philadelphia Eagles was Devonta Smith.
We be locked in, bro. We be locked in. Had that further down my notes because he was like the security blanket for Jalen Hurts when things were looking a little sketchy.
He made play after play after play in the middle of the field, too. And a lot of people, I remember Devonta Smith coming out of college. Everybody's like, oh, I don't know. You know, the legs. He's so small. And da-da-da-da-da. If you look at the plays that he makes a lot of his catches in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
You know, and Jalen Hurts is good at finding his receivers in the zone. I think that's something that not a lot of people talk about. And Devonta Smith was finding holes in the zone all night long. Now, Philadelphia's defense, you talked about how good they were in the beginning of this game, and I thought that was a great point about how that really saved them, because as the game went on, I thought Green Bay really found a way to attack Philadelphia's defense. I thought Josh Jacobs was phenomenal in the second half. He was not found nowhere to run in the first half.
My dog knows ball, y'all. My dog knows ball.
So that was exciting for me to watch, because those were the two guys I was looking for as an RTDB type of guy. I wanted to see what Barkley and Jacobs did. And my guy, Jaden Reed, who I have massive amounts of fantasy share in Jaden Reed this year, he came to play. Yeah. And he's another guy that is just – he's sneaky. He's fast. He can run the route tree up to down, you know. So I thought it was really good to see him out there, obviously making play after play.
He was the wide receiver one for the Packers last year. Didn't breach 1,000 yards, but he was damn close. And I think he's definitely their wide receiver one. In this game, had 138 yards on just 4 receptions, 6 targets, had the big touchdown. Yeah, Jaden Reed's a dog.
You know how many? You know where that puts him in the NFL Week 1 for receiving yards?
I would say I'm going to go second.
Number one.
I thought Tyreek Hill might have been there because I was playing against him and his fantasy points were just out of this world.
Jameson Williams had a good game too. But defensively, Philadelphia gave up 414 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Both teams allowed over 400 in this one.
The yards per play were crazy in this game. 6.8 and 7.8. Red zone, though, was where another big difference was. And, you know, you talked about it by them holding the field goals. Green Bay was 1 of 4 in the red zone.
Yeah, you can't win like that.
If you're
going to
go
a team like the Eagles.
If you're going to go 1 of 4 in the red zone, you know, Philadelphia had 6 red zone attempts. They were 3 for 6 in the red zone.
3 for 6, okay.
And the penalties obviously killed Green Bay also. 10 penalties for 71 yards in this game. So, and you think about all those things that Green Bay did poorly, and they were in this game pretty much all the way in you know, to the end when they ended up losing. But now it's going to be tough. You started this whole thing off by asking me, do I think it lived up to the hype? Absolutely. Do I think we're still going to get there? Excuse me. It's going to be a little bit tougher now for the Green Bay Packers. I'm assuming Jordan Love misses 3 weeks because they elected not to put him on IR. Mm-hmm. If they thought he was going to miss 4 weeks, they would have put him on IR.
Right.
That's the impression that I'm getting here. So they got three weeks of. I don't think they're going to bring anybody in. I think they're going to go with Malik Willis. They're going to have to rely on Josh Jacobs heavily moving forward, and some of the other young running backs they have in that backfield. You'll probably see Jaden Reed get a lot of, like, you know, end sweeps and stuff like that, you know, kind of some gadget plays.
Things like that.
Yeah, so to kind of like ease Malik Willis in, but he has an opportunity. Malik Willis has an opportunity here to kind of do something. And
I love it, bro.
It'll be interesting to see. Man. He was the number one bought card football players over the last couple of days. Really? Because everybody's trying to buy he's super cheap, obviously, because you know, he wasn't what everybody thought he was, but now he's going to have an opportunity here to make a name for himself in the next couple of weeks.
When he was leading the Titans on a preseason drive to win the game before he got traded, and he got down to the red zone, I swear to you, bro, I was like, God, please let Malik get this ball in the end zone. I don't want to have more on Malik's shoulders because I feel like he's been a punching bag, like, for Giants, whatever, unnecessarily, simply because a lot of people did want to draft him. Some wanted him high in the first round and whatnot, and others were like, well, he's there in the third round. Why won't we get him? Excuse me. And I just think like he don't deserve that. He's a good dude, small school. I'm rooting for him, man. You know, that's that like kind of Steve McNair type of story coming out of, a small school like Liberty. Reminds me of Alcorn State type of vibes. You talked about Devonta Smith. Just wanted to give people the numbers here. 7 receptions, quiet for 84 yards. Talked about him being a security blanket. Jahan Dotson really didn't do too much in this game. I did see him get some snaps. Both of these teams were terrible on third down. The Eagles were 4 for 14. The Packers were 3 of 11. We talked about Josh Jacobs having the slow start in the first half and really picking things up in the second half. I played against him in fantasy football, and I was just like, oh, my God, Josh Jacobs has nothing in the first half, feeling really good. He ended up, with 16 rushes for 84 yards and 5.3 yards per carry. So talked about both teams going over 400. Jalen Hurts is who I really want to talk about here. I focused on him in the preview show, talking about how his season last year, a lot of people looking at it as a major step back simply because of the turnovers, and he kind of picked up where he left off here. 3 turnovers in this game is definitely not good, but the numbers weren't too terrible. 20 of 34 for 278, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. The QBR was pretty damn low at 38.8, but this is what I wanted to talk about. Now, we talked about how last year Jalen Hurts was the most blitzed quarterback in the entire NFL, the second most blitzed quarterback in the NFL. 39% of his dropbacks, he was being blitzed. He was 30th in passer rating versus 6 or more rushers coming at the quarterback. We talked a little bit about this off air. His PFF grade in this game was at 84.9 when he was being pressured. His adjusted completion percentage under pressure was 100%. He was only pressured on 5 of those dropbacks. His passer rating while being blitzed was 151.6. His yards per attempt was 11.4. He was 6 of 8 for 91 yards. His pressure to sack percentage was 0%, and his ADOT was 6.4 yards. That's what you want to build on. You got to clean up the turnovers. He talked about that after the game with Sal Palantino. You got to clean that up. And he said that is something that as a team we are in control of, and we need to control that. And I totally agree with him on that. But as far as playing against the blitz and being under pressure, he looked like a different quarterback. And I got to credit a lot of that to Kellen Moore for preparing them, getting them ready. I saw a couple of plays where, they had more rushers coming at the quarterback than they had offensive linemen. And they adjusted and made the hot concept work for them. Quick throws, getting the ball out fast. Jalen Hurts was the kind of quarterback on that night that if it was not there, he wasn't trying to force it. And I thought the Packers did a really good job of containing him in the first half, especially keeping him in the pocket. And when they tried to flood him out of the pocket, he really didn't have anywhere to go. But what I respected from Jalen Hurts in this game was the ability to just throw the ball away and live to play another down. Now, Jordan Love in this game, he reminded me of what we saw in the beginning of last season. The first couple of months where he was kind of struggling. Remember I talked about him being in the pocket, and he has this like tendency to kind of like have this rhythm, which I think kind of throws off his accuracy a little bit. And I think we saw a little bit of that in this game. He was 17 of 34 for 260 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. His QBR was less than Jalen Hurts at 20.4. Both quarterbacks did a really good job of handling pressure and not taking too many sacks in this game. A total of 3 sacks, 2 of them on Jalen Hurts, 1 of them on Jordan Love. I really think that for guys who weren't playing in the preseason, this was kind of that, like, get the rust off. And, I heard people talking about this with Daniel Jones with the New York Giants, right? You can't look at a bucket and talk about the rust coming off of the bucket, right? You talk about the rust coming off of a car that is known to be looking good out there on the strip, right? We don't look at a bucket and go, man, we got to get the rust off of this 88 Honda Civic.
You rock the rust.
Exactly. That's not how we're looking at it. Once that fender start to rust away a little bit, you're done. The body shop can't fix that. So with these 2 quarterbacks, I do think that they were knocking off the rust a little bit. I thought it was a really good performance. Friday night, you had to travel, long flight. I thought this was one of the better type of games that we've seen overseas. There's been many times where you see teams travel and the score is so low and it's just a boring game. And that's not good for the NFL to be trying to spread their brand across the country. But nonetheless, I thought it was a really good game. And can't go without talking about A.J. Brown, the huge 67-yard reception. I thought that was one of the biggest differences in this game. He had 5 receptions for 119 yards and a touchdown. That's exactly what he does, and he's known to do that. And we saw last year he had a 6-game streak of games with 120 yards or more. So he picked up right where he left off. And I think the Philadelphia Eagles kind of, this reminds me a little bit of last season. Didn't play their best game, still got away with the victory. You want to clean those things up, getting here, in this first half of the season. So by the time you get to winter football, you're ready to go and ready to win some games and contend for a championship.
Yeah, so just a couple more points. Big shout out to Mike Glenn in the chat, not to be mistaken with Mike Glennon. He brought up Xavier McKinney. We gotta
talk about Xavier.
We got to give a little love to Xavier McKinney. For me, this is the thing. When you get these new guys in your team, there is nothing better for a fan than seeing the guys who are new make plays early in the season. Because it's not even just a sense of satisfaction or justification. It makes you understand, like, okay, this is why we put these pieces into place, right? The NFL is just such a different league now than it was back in the day with free agency. So, you just don't see guys stay with the same teams for so long. It's a business, right? And I think we both, acknowledge the talent level of Xavier McKinney. And I think he's going to play a huge role for this Green Bay Packers team. So I just want to give a big shout out to him. Last but certainly not least, the field.
Oh, man, the field was terrible.
The field was bad.
To think that maybe that kind of, I'm thinking it hurt them a little bit as far as the offense goes, but maybe it helped them a little bit too. I mean, like,
they had to switch up the cleats probably.
They did, and you saw Saquon, they were talking about he was trying out some new cleats, and then they switched the studs on the cleats definitely mid-game.
So, yeah, that was interesting to watch as well. I think that it was a lot worse in the beginning of the game. I think, the players, they're professionals, so they adjusted very well. And you talked about overseas games. Germany gets the Giants and the Panthers.
Yeah.
Shout out
I
Germany.
saw somebody say, what did Germany do to deserve this? And then somebody was in the comments and said, damn well what they did. I was like, damn.